Welcome back to U.S. Rare Coins News. That little Washington quarter in your hand may be worth far more than its face value. Some quarters become highly desirable because of a rare date, mint mark, unusual error, or excellent condition. But how do you know if yours is one of them? In this video, we'll reveal the key details every collector should check before spending a Washington quarter. Keep watching until the end, and subscribe to U.S. Rare Coins News for more exciting rare coin discoveries. Top 1. What if a quarter that looks completely ordinary could make you stop and take a second look before spending it? The 1974 Washington quarter dollar is more than just a 25-cent coin. It comes from an important period in American coinage, and while millions were produced, certain examples can attract serious attention from collectors because of their condition, striking quality, varieties, or unusual minting characteristics. So if you have a 1974 quarter in an old collection, a coin jar, or even tucked away somewhere at home, do not rush to spend it. In this video, we are going to examine this coin from every important angle, including its weight, size, composition, mint mark, design, history, condition, collectible potential, and finally the eye-catching price connected with this coin. Let's start with the basic specifications. The 1974 Washington quarter dollar weighs 5.67 grams. Its diameter is approximately 24.26 millimeters, while its thickness is approximately 1.75 millimeters. The coin has a reeded edge, which means you can see and feel the small ridges around the outside of the coin. These measurements are important because collectors often use them as a basic way to identify a genuine coin and compare it with the standard specifications of the issue. So if you have one of these quarters in your collection, a good examination starts with the basics before moving on to the details that could make one example more interesting than another. The 1974 Washington quarter was designed with the familiar portrait of George Washington on the front. Washington faces left, with Liberty above his portrait, "In God We Trust" positioned around the design, and the date 1974 at the bottom. This classic design had already become extremely recognizable to Americans by this time. But when examining your own coin, do not just look at the date and move on. Take your time. Look at the lettering, Washington's portrait, the rims, the fields, and the overall sharpness of the design. Small details can tell you a lot about the condition and history of a coin. Now there is another detail that you absolutely need to check on a 1974 Washington quarter, and that is the mint mark. The coin featured in this video has no mint mark. But here is something important that many new collectors may not realize: a missing mint mark on a 1974 quarter does not automatically mean you have a rare error coin. The 1974 Philadelphia issue was produced without a mint mark, so a normal 1974 Philadelphia quarter will have no mint mark. The mint mark area is located on the obverse, near Washington's neck. So take your coin under good lighting and inspect this area carefully. If you see no mint mark, that can simply indicate that your quarter was struck at Philadelphia. Now let's talk about composition, because this is another major point that can easily confuse people. The 1974 Washington quarter is a copper nickel-clad coin rather than a 90% silver quarter. The outer layers are made from a copper-nickel alloy, while the core is copper. This change in composition had already taken place years earlier as the United States moved away from silver in regular circulating quarters. So even though a 1974 quarter is now more than 50 years old, you should not automatically assume that it contains silver. Its collectible value is determined by other factors, including condition, rarity, varieties, errors, and collector demand. When you look at the reverse, you will see one of the most recognizable designs in American coinage from this period. A powerful eagle appears with its wings spread, surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America, E pluribus unum, and quarter dollar. Take a close look at the eagle and the surrounding lettering. Examine the rim and the fields of the coin. Are the details sharp? Are there many scratches? Does the coin show heavy wear? Or does it still have a fresh, original appearance? These questions become increasingly important when determining how desirable a particular example might be to collectors. And this is where the story of the 1974 Washington quarter becomes much more interesting. The date itself does not automatically make the coin rare. Large numbers of 1974 quarters were produced, so an ordinary circulated example is generally not considered a rare coin simply because it is from 1974. But coin collecting is not only about how many coins were produced. It is also about what survived, how well it survived, and whether a particular coin has characteristics that make it stand out from the millions of other examples. Imagine having two 1974 Washington quarters sitting next to each other. At first glance, they may look almost identical. But one could have been heavily circulated for decades, with scratches, marks, and worn details. The other might have been protected in a collection for most of its life, retaining much sharper details and cleaner surfaces. To an inexperienced person, they are simply two 25-cent coins. To a collector, however, the difference can be significant. This is why condition is one of the most important things to learn when you begin searching for valuable coins. High-grade examples are especially interesting because achieving an exceptional grade is not easy. A coin can look beautiful to the naked eye but still have tiny marks, contact damage, weak striking, or other imperfections that affect its professional grade. Collectors searching for top-quality coins may examine the surfaces under magnification and carefully study the strength of the strike, luster, preservation, and overall eye appeal. The better the coin survives, the more attention it can potentially receive from serious collectors. But there is another thing you should always remember when searching for a potentially valuable 1974 quarter: do not confuse damage with a genuine mint error. A coin can become scratched, dented, discolored, bent, or damaged after leaving the mint. These problems can sometimes look unusual, but they are not necessarily valuable mint errors. A genuine minting error occurs during the production process and can have specific characteristics that collectors recognize. If you think your 1974 quarter has an unusual feature, do not clean it, polish it, scratch it, or try to alter it. Preserve the coin in its current condition and have it examined by someone experienced with collectible coins. Another reason I always tell viewers to look carefully at their coins is because the most exciting discoveries do not always come from the coins that look spectacular at first. Sometimes a coin has a subtle characteristic that only becomes obvious when you compare it with a normal example. That is why experienced collectors spend so much time studying dates, mint marks, lettering, rims, designs, and surfaces. The more you learn, the easier it becomes to recognize when something genuinely deserves a closer look. And if you are searching through an old collection, here is a simple strategy. Start with the date. Then check the mint mark area. Next, inspect both sides under good lighting. Look for unusual doubling, unusual striking characteristics, missing design details, major die-related features, or anything that appears different from a normal example. Then check the overall condition. Finally, compare what you see with reliable references or professional auction records. This approach is much better than simply believing every huge price claim you see online. The 1974 Washington quarter also represents an interesting chapter in the history of U.S. coinage. By the 1970s, the United States had already moved away from the traditional silver composition used in earlier circulating quarters. These clad quarters became a familiar part of everyday American commerce and continued the Washington quarter series that collectors still follow today. So even an ordinary 1974 example can be a fascinating piece of American history, especially for collectors who enjoy building complete date and mint collections. Now comes the moment many viewers have been waiting for. What about the huge price you may hear associated with a 1974 Washington quarter? The price mentioned for this video is $172,000. But there is something extremely important you need to understand. $172,000 is not the normal value of an ordinary 1974 Washington quarter with no mint mark. Do not assume that every 1974 Philadelphia quarter is automatically worth this amount. The actual value of a coin depends on its specific characteristics, condition, authentication, grading, rarity, and documented market history. In fact, publicly documented auction records for regular high-grade examples can be dramatically lower than that figure. So always be careful when you see sensational coin values online, and never assume a large number applies to every example of the same date. That is exactly why I want you to check your own coins carefully. Maybe your 1974 quarter is an ordinary circulated example. Maybe it is in unusually good condition. Maybe you have noticed something strange about the design or strike. Whatever the case may be, take a closer look before you put it back into your collection or spend it. You might discover something that deserves further research. And now I want to hear from you. Do you have a 1974 Washington quarter dollar? Does yours have no mint mark? What condition is it in? Have you noticed any unusual detail, error, variety, or strange feature on your coin? Give me a reply in the comments and tell me about the coin you have. You can also mention the year, mint mark, condition, and anything unusual you have noticed. Your coin could become the subject of a future video. And if you enjoy Washington quarters, rare U.S. coins, valuable coin discoveries, mint errors, coin values, and fascinating American coin history, make sure you subscribe to U.S. Rare Coins News. Turn on notifications so you do not miss the next video, because the next coin we examine could be sitting quietly in an old collection right now. Remember, never judge a coin only by its face value. Sometimes the most interesting part of a coin is the story hidden in its smallest details. Top 2. Stop before you spend that 1992 Washington quarter. If you have a 1992 Washington quarter with a P mint mark, take a close look at it before you put it back into your pocket or spend it. This coin may look like an ordinary 25-cent piece, but there are several important details that every collector should check. The date, mint mark, condition, surfaces, strike, and any genuine mint-made varieties can all affect collector interest. In this video, we are going to take a detailed look at the 1992 Washington quarter, including its specifications, composition, design, Philadelphia mint mark, history, condition, and the features you should look for on your own coin. And make sure you stay until the very end, because I will reveal the price mentioned for this coin at the end of the video. First, let's look at the basic specifications of the 1992 Washington quarter dollar. This coin has a standard weight of 5.67 grams, a diameter of approximately 24.26 millimeters, and a thickness of approximately 1.75 millimeters. It also has a reeded edge, with small ridges running around the outside of the coin. These measurements are useful when examining a coin because they provide a basic reference for identifying the correct type. If you have a 1992 quarter in your collection, you can compare its general appearance, size, weight, and edge with the standard specifications before looking for anything unusual. Now let's move to the front of the coin. The obverse features the familiar portrait of George Washington facing left. Above the portrait is the word Liberty, while "In God We Trust" appears around the design, and the date 1992 is positioned below Washington. This classic Washington design had already been used on American quarters for decades by the time this coin was produced. But even when the design is familiar, the condition of an individual coin can be very different. Some 1,992 quarters spent years in circulation, while others were saved and protected shortly after being struck. That difference can be extremely important when collectors compare examples. One of the first details you should check is the mint mark. The coin featured in this video has a P mint mark. The letter P indicates that the coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. On a 1992 Washington quarter, the mint mark can be found on the obverse near the base of Washington's neck. Because the mark is small, it can sometimes be difficult to see clearly, especially on a circulated coin. Use good lighting and examine the area carefully. If you see the letter P in the correct location, you have the Philadelphia issue. Remember, however, that the P mint mark itself is normal for this coin and does not automatically make it a rare error. Now let's talk about the composition of the 1992 Washington quarter. This is a copper nickel-clad quarter, not a traditional 90% silver quarter. The coin has outer layers made from copper and nickel surrounding a copper core. This clad composition had been used for regular Washington quarters for many years before 1992. So if you find a 1992 quarter, do not assume that it contains silver simply because it is now several decades old. The real collecting interest comes from factors such as condition, varieties, errors, strike quality, and other characteristics of the individual coin. Turn the coin over and you will see the classic reverse design. The reverse features a large American eagle with its wings spread, surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America, E pluribus unum, and $quarter. Take a moment to examine this side carefully. Look at the eagle, the lettering, the arrows, the olive branches, the rim, and the fields around the design. If the coin has been heavily circulated, you may see scratches, marks, discoloration, and worn details. But if the coin has been preserved extremely well, the design can remain much sharper and the surfaces can be far more attractive. And this is where things become interesting for collectors. The year 1992 alone does not automatically make a Washington quarter rare. Large quantities of quarters were produced during this period, so an ordinary circulated 1992 P quarter is generally not a rare coin simply because of its date. But experienced collectors know that the same date and mint mark can appear in many different conditions. A heavily worn example and an exceptionally well-preserved example may have very different levels of collector interest. This is why you should always examine the actual coin rather than judging it only by its year. Condition is one of the most important things to check. Start with Washington's portrait on the obverse. Look at the hair, cheek, jawline, and other raised areas. Are the details sharp, or do they show signs of wear? Next, examine the open fields around the portrait. Look for scratches, contact marks, spots, stains, or other surface problems. Then move to the reverse and inspect the eagle and surrounding lettering. The better preserved the surfaces and design details are, the more interesting the coin may become to collectors. If your 1992 quarter looks unusually bright, do not immediately assume that it is a rare coin. Brightness can come from different sources, including normal mint luster, storage, or even improper cleaning. Cleaning a collectible coin is something you should avoid. Scrubbing, polishing, or using chemicals can damage the original surfaces and may actually make a potentially collectible coin less desirable. If you believe you have an unusual or valuable example, it is better to preserve the coin exactly as you found it and have it properly examined. Another important thing to understand is the difference between a genuine mint error and post-mint damage. A strange scratch, dent, discoloration, bent rim, or damaged letter does not automatically mean the coin is an error. A genuine mint error occurs during the manufacturing process and normally has characteristics that can be studied and verified. This is why experienced collectors compare unusual coins with normal examples and, when necessary, seek professional authentication. If you see something strange on your 1992 P quarter, take clear photographs and investigate before assuming that you have discovered a major rarity. There is also something special about searching through older American coins because you never know where they have been. A 1992 quarter could have spent years in everyday circulation, passed through stores and banks, or it could have been placed into a collection soon after it was minted. Some coins become scratched and worn through decades of use, while others remain surprisingly well preserved. That is why collectors enjoy searching old collections, coin jars, rolls, and other groups of coins. The excitement is not simply about finding an old date, it is about finding an example that stands out from the ordinary. The 1992 quarter also belongs to an interesting period in the Washington Quarter series. It was produced before the famous 50-state quarters program began in 1999. At the time, the classic Washington design remained a familiar part of everyday American life. For collectors who enjoy building date and mint collections, a 1992 P quarter can therefore be an interesting piece of the broader Washington Quarter series. It represents the traditional design that Americans had known for generations before the quarter entered a new era of changing reverse designs. If you are checking your own 1992 P Washington quarter, here is what I want you to do. First, confirm the date. Second, check for the P mint mark near Washington's neck. Third, examine the weight and dimensions if you have suitable measuring equipment. Fourth, inspect the obverse and reverse under good lighting. Look carefully at the lettering, portrait, eagle, rim, and edge. Then look for anything that appears genuinely different from a normal example. Finally, if you believe you have a significant mint error, unusual variety, or exceptionally high-grade coin, consider having it professionally evaluated. And remember one very important rule in coin collecting: never let a huge price number convince you that every coin of the same date is automatically worth the same amount. Two coins can have the same year and mint mark but completely different values because their conditions and characteristics are different. Always look for reliable information, documented sales, professional grading, and actual market evidence. This is especially important when you see extremely high values being claimed online. Now we have reached the final part of today's video, and this is the number many viewers have been waiting for. The price mentioned for this coin is $187,000. But please understand this clearly: $187,000 is not the normal value of an ordinary 1992 Washington quarter. A regular circulated example is generally worth far less. An extraordinary price would require a very specific coin with exceptional characteristics, authentication, and strong evidence supporting that valuation. So if you have a 1992 quarter, do not assume that it is automatically worth $187,000. Instead, examine your coin carefully and verify any extraordinary claim before making a decision about its value. That is what makes coin collecting so exciting. A small coin can look completely ordinary at first, but when you slow down and examine the details, you start to see the history behind it. The date tells you when it was made, the mint mark can tell you where it was struck, the condition tells you how well it survived, and unusual characteristics can make you want to investigate even further. Every coin has a story, and sometimes the fun is in discovering that story for yourself. So now I want to hear from you. Do you have a 1992 Washington quarter with AP mint mark? What condition is your coin in? Is it circulated, uncirculated, or does it have something unusual that caught your attention? Give me a reply in the comments and tell me about the coin you have. If you have any coin that you want me to show and discuss in a future video, tell me the year, mint mark, and any interesting details you have noticed. Your coin could be featured in one of my upcoming videos. And if you enjoy Washington quarters, rare U.S. coins, valuable coin discoveries, mint errors, coin values, and American coin history, make sure you subscribe to U.S. Rare Coins News. Your subscription supports the channel and helps me continue bringing you more interesting coins and discoveries. So before you spend that 1992 quarter, take another look at it. Check the date, check the P mint mark, inspect both sides, and pay attention to the smallest details. You never know what interesting coin might already be sitting in your collection. Top 3. Before you spend a 1966 Washington quarter, stop for a moment and look closely at what you have in your hand. A coin from 1966 may appear to be nothing more than an old 25-cent piece, but this was a very interesting period in American coinage. The mid-1960s brought major changes to U.S. circulating coins, and the 1966 Washington quarter belongs to that important era. If you have one with no mint mark, don't simply judge it by its age or face value. The real story can be found in its composition, condition, strike, surfaces, and any unusual characteristics it may have. Stay with me because we are going to examine this coin from every important angle, and at the end I will reveal the price mentioned for this coin. Let's begin with the basic specifications. The 1966 Washington quarter has a standard weight of 5.67 grams, a diameter of approximately 24.26 millimeters, and a thickness of approximately 1.75 millimeters. Around the edge of the coin you will find the familiar reeded design, with small ridges running all the way around the circumference. These specifications are useful when examining an example because they give collectors a starting point for identifying the correct type of coin. If you have a 1966 quarter at home, you can carefully compare its overall size, weight, thickness, and edge with these standard characteristics. Now take a look at the front of the coin. The obverse features the famous portrait of George Washington facing left. Above his portrait is Liberty, while I in God We Trust appears around the design, and the date 1966 is positioned at the bottom. This Washington design had already been part of American coinage for decades, but the 1966 issue is particularly interesting because it comes from the period when the United States was dealing with a major shortage of circulating coins and had already begun changing the composition of several denominations. One of the first things you should notice about this particular 1966 quarter is the absence of a mint mark. There is no mint mark on the coin. But here is an important detail that every collector should know: the absence of a mint mark on a 1966 Washington quarter is normal. In 1966, the United States Mint did not use mint marks on circulating coins, so you should not automatically assume that a no mint mark 1966 quarter is an error. In fact, millions of these quarters were produced without a mint mark. The important question is not simply whether there is a mint mark, but what condition and characteristics your individual coin has. Now let's talk about composition, because this is one of the most interesting parts of the 1966 Washington quarter. This quarter is not made from the traditional 90% silver composition used on Washington quarters dated 1964 and earlier. Instead, the 1966 quarter is a copper-nickel clad coin. It has outer layers made primarily of copper and nickel surrounding a copper core. This change was introduced because the rising value of silver was creating problems for circulating U.S. coins. So when you find a 1966 quarter, do not automatically assume it is a traditional silver quarter simply because it comes from the 1960s. This makes the 1966 quarter an important coin for understanding the transition in American coinage. The United States had to find a way to continue producing quarters for everyday use without relying on the same silver composition that had been used previously. The new clad composition became the standard, and the Washington quarter continued circulating as one of America's most recognizable denominations. So even an ordinary 1966 example represents an important chapter in U.S. monetary history. Now turn the coin over and examine the reverse. You will see the classic eagle design with its wings spread, surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America, E pluribus unum, and $quarter. Look carefully at the eagle, the arrows, the olive branches, the lettering, and the rim. On a heavily circulated coin, these details may appear worn or softened. But on a well-preserved example, the design can remain much sharper. When collectors examine older quarters, they pay close attention to these small details because preservation can make a major difference in desirability. Here is where you need to be careful. A 1966 Washington quarter is not automatically rare simply because it is now more than 60 years old. Large numbers were produced, and ordinary circulated examples can still be found. Age by itself does not create extraordinary value. What makes an individual coin interesting is its specific condition, quality, variety, or genuine mint-made error. This is one of the most important lessons for anyone getting started in coin collecting. Imagine you have two 1966 Washington quarters sitting side by side. Both have no mint mark. Both have the same date. Both have the same basic composition. But one has spent decades in circulation and shows scratches, marks, worn lettering, and softened details. The other has been carefully stored and retains much stronger details and cleaner surfaces. To someone who does not collect coins, they may appear almost identical. To a serious collector, however, the difference in preservation can be very important. That is why you should examine the condition of your coin carefully. Start with Washington's portrait. Look at the hair, cheek, jawline, and other raised areas. Are the details still sharp, or have they become smooth from circulation? Then examine the open areas around the portrait. Look for scratches, contact marks, spots, discoloration, or other damage. Turn the coin over and perform the same examination on the reverse. Look closely at the eagle, lettering, rim, and fields. The cleaner and better preserved the original surfaces are, the more interesting the coin may become to collectors. Another important point is that not every unusual-looking mark is a mint error. A coin can receive scratches, dents, stains, bends, or other damage after leaving the mint. These features can sometimes look dramatic, especially under bright lighting, but they do not automatically make a coin valuable. A genuine mint error is created during the manufacturing process and has characteristics that can be studied and verified. If your 1966 quarter appears unusual, do not try to scratch it, polish it, clean it, or alter it. Keep the coin in its current condition and have it examined if you believe something is genuinely unusual. The 1966 Washington quarter can also be fascinating for collectors because it belongs to a period when American coinage was undergoing a major transformation. Earlier Washington quarters had been made from silver, while the 1966 issue belongs to the new clad era. This means the coin can serve as a physical reminder of an important change in the U.S. monetary system. For collectors who enjoy history as much as value, that alone can make the coin interesting. If you have a group of old quarters, the 1966 date is definitely one worth setting aside for closer examination. Look at the dates around it and compare their appearance. Check the condition of each coin. You may notice differences in strike quality, surface preservation, color, or wear. Comparing coins side by side is one of the best ways to train your eyes. The more normal examples you study, the easier it becomes to recognize something that genuinely looks different. When searching for potentially valuable coins, another important rule is to avoid cleaning them. A coin that has developed natural toning or retained original surfaces should generally be left alone. Scrubbing or polishing can leave scratches and change the appearance of the surfaces. Even if the coin looks brighter afterward, that does not necessarily mean it has become more valuable. In many cases, collectors prefer coins with original, untouched surfaces. And now we come to the most exciting part of the video, the final price mentioned for this coin. The price is $160,000. But before anyone gets too excited, there is a very important distinction to understand. $160,000 is not the normal value of every 1966 Washington quarter with no mint mark. An ordinary circulated example should not automatically be valued anywhere near that amount. A price this extraordinary would require a very specific coin with exceptional characteristics, authentication, and strong supporting evidence. So if you own a 1966 quarter, do not assume that simply having the date means you have a $160,000 coin. Always verify extraordinary value claims through reliable sources and professional evaluation. This is exactly why coin collecting is so much more than simply looking at the date. The real excitement comes from examining the details. The mint mark, composition, condition, strike, surfaces, varieties, and genuine errors can all tell you more about the individual coin. Sometimes the coin you almost ignored can turn out to be much more interesting once you know what to look for. So take your 1966 Washington quarter and give it a careful examination. Check the date. Confirm that there is no mint mark. Look at Washington's portrait. Study the lettering. Turn it over and inspect the eagle. Examine the edge. Look for unusual features, but remember the difference between mint-made characteristics and damage that happened after circulation. If something genuinely stands out, preserve the coin and consider getting an expert opinion rather than changing the coin yourself. Now I want to hear from you. Do you have a 1966 Washington quarter with no mint mark? How many do you have in your collection? Is your coin heavily circulated, or does it still look surprisingly fresh? Have you noticed any unusual feature on yours? Give me a reply in the comments and tell me about the coin you have. If you have any coin that you would like me to show and discuss in a future video, tell me the year, mint mark, condition, and anything unusual you have noticed. And if you enjoy Washington quarters, rare U.S. coins, valuable coin discoveries, mint errors, coin values, and American coin history, make sure you subscribe to U.S. Rare Coins News. Your support helps the channel continue bringing you more interesting coins and discoveries. So remember, before you spend an old quarter, take a second look. Check the date, study the details, and never underestimate the history sitting right there in your hand. Your next interesting coin discovery could be hiding in your collection right now. Top 4. Before you put that 1987 Washington quarter back into your pocket or spend it, take a few seconds and look at it carefully. A small detail on an American quarter can completely change the story behind the coin, and that is exactly why collectors examine dates, mint marks, condition, and unusual characteristics so closely. The 1987 Washington quarter with a P mint mark may look like an ordinary 25-cent coin, but there are several things you should know before deciding that it has nothing interesting about it. In this video, we are going to take a detailed look at this coin, from its basic specifications and composition to its design, Philadelphia mint mark, condition, collecting interest, and the important features you should check on your own example. And make sure you stay with me until the end, because I will reveal the price mentioned for this coin in the final part of the video. Let's begin with the basic information. The 1987 Washington quarter dollar has a standard weight of 5.67 grams, a diameter of approximately 24.26 millimeters, and a thickness of approximately 1.75 millimeters. Around the edge, this quarter has a reeded design made up of small ridges. These specifications are important because collectors can use them as a starting point when examining a coin. If you have a 1987 Washington quarter at home, compare its general size, weight, thickness, and edge with the normal characteristics of the denomination. If something seems significantly different, that is a reason to investigate further rather than immediately assuming that you have a rare error. Now look at the obverse, or front, of the coin. You will see the famous portrait of George Washington facing left. The word Liberty appears above him, "In God We Trust" is positioned around the portrait, and the date 1987 appears at the bottom. This classic portrait had been a familiar part of American coinage for generations by the time this quarter was struck. But the fact that the design is familiar does not mean every coin has survived in the same condition. Some 1987 quarters were heavily used in everyday commerce, while others were saved by collectors or simply avoided heavy circulation. That difference can be very important when evaluating individual coins. Now comes one of the first details you should check, the mint mark. The coin featured in this video has a P mint mark. The letter P indicates that this quarter was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. On the Washington quarter, the mint mark can be found on the obverse near the base of Washington's neck. Because the mint mark is small, you may need good lighting to see it clearly. Take your time and inspect the area carefully. Finding a P on a 1987 quarter identifies the Philadelphia issue, but remember that the P mint mark itself is not automatically an error or proof that the coin is extremely rare. Next, let's talk about the composition of the 1987 Washington quarter. This coin is a copper nickel-clad quarter. It is not made from the 90% silver composition used for earlier Washington quarters dated 1964 and before. The clad construction uses copper and nickel outer layers surrounding a copper core. This composition had become standard for regular circulating Washington quarters long before 1987. So if you have a 1987 quarter, do not assume that its age means it contains silver. Its collector interest depends on other characteristics such as condition, varieties, errors, strike quality, and preservation. Now turn the coin over and examine the reverse. You will see the familiar American eagle with its wings spread. Around the eagle are the inscriptions United States of America, E pluribus unum, and quarter dollar. Look closely at the eagle, the arrows, the olive branches, the lettering, and the rim. On a heavily circulated quarter, you may notice wear across the highest parts of the design. The lettering may appear softer, the surfaces may show scratches, and the rim may have marks from years of handling. On a well-preserved coin, however, these details can remain much sharper. This is one of the first major differences collectors look for when comparing coins from the same year. Here is something very important to understand about the 1987 Washington quarter: the date and P mint mark alone do not make the coin extremely rare. Millions of quarters were produced during this period, and ordinary circulated examples are generally not valuable simply because they carry the 1987 date. But that does not mean you should ignore them. The condition of an individual coin can make a major difference, and genuine mint errors or unusual varieties can create additional collector interest. The key is learning how to separate an ordinary example from a truly unusual one. Imagine placing two 1987 P Washington quarters side by side. Both have the same date and mint mark. Both weigh approximately the same amount. Both have the same basic composition and design. But one coin may have spent years circulating through stores, banks, vending machines, and pockets. It may have scratches, contact marks, worn details, and other signs of use. The other could have been carefully preserved and show much sharper details and cleaner original surfaces. To a casual observer, they may look almost identical. To a collector, the difference in preservation can be significant. This is why you should carefully inspect the condition of your coin. Start with Washington's portrait on the front. Look at the hair, cheek, jawline, and other raised areas. Are the details sharp, or have they become smooth from circulation? Then look at the open fields around the portrait. These flatter areas can reveal scratches, contact marks, spots, or other surface problems. Next, examine the reverse. Study the eagle, the lettering, the rim, and the surrounding fields. Take your time. The more carefully you look, the more information you can discover about the coin. Another important point is the difference between a genuine mint error and ordinary damage. A scratch, dent, discoloration, bent edge, or damaged letter does not automatically mean that a coin is an error. Many coins receive damage after leaving the mint. Genuine mint errors happen during the production process and normally have identifiable characteristics. So if you notice something strange on your 1987 P quarter, do not immediately scratch it, clean it, polish it, or attempt to repair it. Preserve it exactly as you found it and seek a knowledgeable opinion if the feature appears significant. You should also be careful with extremely bright or shiny coins. A bright appearance does not automatically mean that a coin is rare or valuable. Some coins retain natural mint luster because they were well preserved, while others may have been cleaned or polished. Cleaning can leave unwanted marks and change the original appearance of a coin. For that reason, collectors generally prefer to see a coin in its original condition rather than one that has been aggressively cleaned. The 1987 Washington quarter is also an interesting piece of American coin history because it belongs to the period before the famous 50-state quarters program changed the appearance of the denomination in 1999. In 1987, the classic Washington design was still the familiar quarter that Americans encountered every day. These coins circulated through an enormous amount of everyday commerce, which means that finding one today in exceptionally preserved condition can be more interesting than simply finding an ordinary circulated example. If you are searching through an old collection, coin jar, or group of Washington quarters, the best approach is to examine the coins systematically. Start with the date. Check the mint mark. Look at the condition. Inspect both sides under good lighting. Pay attention to the lettering, portrait, eagle, rim, and edge. If you see something that appears unusual, compare it with a normal example of the same year. This comparison can help you determine whether the feature is genuinely unusual or simply the result of wear, lighting, or post-mint damage. One of the biggest mistakes new collectors make is believing that every unusual mark is a valuable error. That is not the case. Some marks are caused by circulation, contact with other coins, machines, storage, or accidental damage. A valuable error generally needs to have a recognizable mint-made cause. This is why research and professional authentication are so important when a coin appears to have something extraordinary. Never change the coin yourself just to make the feature more visible. And now we come to the part that many viewers have been waiting for, the final price mentioned in this video. The price is $157,000. But please remember this very important point, $157,000 is not the normal value of every 1987 P Washington quarter. An ordinary circulated example should not automatically be considered worth anywhere near that amount. An extraordinary valuation would require a very specific coin with exceptional characteristics, authentication, and reliable evidence supporting the price. So if you have a 1987 P quarter, do not assume that the date and mint mark alone make it a $157,000 coin. Always verify major value claims through trustworthy references, professional grading, and documented sales. That is what makes coin collecting so exciting. A quarter may only have a face value of 25 cents, but its history can be much more interesting. The date can tell you when it was produced, the mint mark can tell you where it was struck, the composition tells you what the coin is made from, and the condition tells you how well it survived. Add a genuine mint error or an exceptionally high grade, and suddenly the same ordinary-looking coin can become something collectors want to study much more closely. So take another look at your 1987 Washington quarter. Check the P mint mark. Examine Washington's portrait. Look carefully at the lettering. Turn the coin over and inspect the eagle. Check the rim and the reeded edge. Look for unusual features, but remember that not every strange mark is an error. If you believe your coin has something genuinely unusual, protect it and consider getting it professionally examined rather than cleaning or altering it. Now I want to hear from you. Do you have a 1987 Washington quarter with a P mint mark? How many do you have in your collection? Is your coin circulated, uncirculated, or in excellent condition? Have you noticed anything unusual on either side? Give me a reply in the comments and tell me about the coin you have. And if you have any coin that you would like me to show and discuss in a future video, tell me the year, mint mark, condition, and any interesting detail you have noticed. And if you enjoy Washington quarters, rare U.S. coins, valuable coin discoveries, mint errors, coin values, and American coin history, make sure you subscribe to U.S. Rare Coins News. Your support helps the channel continue bringing you more interesting coins and discoveries. So before you spend that old quarter, stop and take another look. Check the date, check the mint mark, study both sides, and pay attention to the smallest details. You never know when an ordinary-looking coin could turn out to be a fascinating discovery. Top 5. Do not spend that 1988 Washington quarter before you take a closer look at it. At first glance, it may look like nothing more than an ordinary 25-cent coin, but the date, the D mint mark, the condition, and the smallest details on the surfaces can make your particular example much more interesting to collectors. The 1988 Washington quarter comes from an important period in modern American coinage, and today we are going to examine this coin closely, including its specifications, composition, design, mint mark, history, condition, possible varieties and errors, and the details you should look for if you have one in your own collection. Stay with me until the end, because the final price mentioned for this coin is one you will definitely want to hear. Let's start with the basic specifications of the 1988 Washington quarter dollar. This coin has a standard weight of 5.67 grams, a diameter of approximately 24.26 millimeters, and a thickness of approximately 1.75 millimeters. The edge is reeded, meaning it has a series of small ridges running around the entire circumference. These measurements are useful for collectors because they provide a basic reference when examining a coin. If you have a 1988 quarter, you can compare its weight, size, thickness, and edge with the standard characteristics before moving on to the more interesting details. Now turn your attention to the front of the coin. The obverse features the familiar portrait of George Washington facing left. Above him is Liberty, while "I in God We Trust" appears around the portrait, and the date 1988 is placed at the bottom. This design had already been part of American coinage for many years by 1988, making it one of the most recognizable designs in U.S. currency. But although the design is familiar, the condition of individual coins can be dramatically different. Some 1,988 quarters spent years circulating through everyday commerce, while others were saved in much better condition. One of the most important details on this particular coin is the D mint mark. The D indicates that the quarter was struck at the Denver Mint. On a Washington quarter from this period, the mint mark is located on the obverse near the base of Washington's neck. Because it is small, you may need good lighting to see it clearly. Take your time and inspect this area carefully. Finding a D mint mark confirms that you have the Denver issue, but remember that the D itself is not automatically an error or proof that the coin is extremely rare. The real question is what condition the coin is in and whether it has any genuine unusual characteristics. Now let's talk about composition. The 1988 Washington quarter is a copper nickel-clad coin. It is not one of the earlier 90% silver Washington quarters. The clad construction consists of copper nickel outer layers surrounding a copper core. This composition had already become standard for regular circulating Washington quarters well before 1988. So if you have a 1988 D quarter, its age does not mean that it contains silver. When collectors evaluate a coin like this, they are much more interested in its condition, varieties, errors, strike quality, and preservation. Turn the coin over and examine the reverse. You will see the familiar American eagle with its wings spread, surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America, E pluribus unum, and $quarter. Take a close look at the eagle and all the surrounding details. Examine the arrows, olive branches, lettering, rim, and the open fields. On a heavily circulated quarter, you may see scratches, contact marks, discoloration, and worn design details. But a well-preserved example can retain much sharper features. This is why collectors never judge a coin simply by looking at the date. The first major lesson to remember is that an old coin is not automatically a rare coin. The 1988 D Washington quarter was produced in large numbers, so an ordinary circulated example is not automatically worth a huge amount just because it carries the 1988 date. However, that does not mean every example is identical. Coins can differ significantly in condition, strike quality, surface preservation, and other characteristics. A high-grade example can be much more desirable than an ordinary circulated coin, and a genuine mint error or unusual variety can create additional collector interest. Imagine you have two 1988 D Washington quarters side by side. They have exactly the same date and mint mark. One has been circulating for decades and has numerous marks, scratches, and worn details. The other has been carefully protected and retains sharp design details and cleaner surfaces. To someone who does not collect coins, they may look almost the same. But to a collector, the difference in preservation can be very important. This is why condition is one of the first things you should learn to evaluate. Start by examining Washington's portrait on the obverse. Look closely at the hair, cheek, jawline, and other raised areas. Are the details still sharp, or have they become smooth from circulation? Then inspect the flat fields around the portrait. Look for scratches, contact marks, stains, spots, or other surface problems. Next, turn the coin over and examine the eagle. Look at the lettering and the rim as well. A careful inspection under good lighting can reveal details that you may completely miss when looking at the coin casually. You should also pay attention to the edge. The reeded edge is an important part of the coin and should be examined along with the obverse and reverse. If you notice anything unusual around the rim or edge, do not immediately assume that it is a valuable mint error. Coins can be damaged after leaving the mint, and post-mint damage can sometimes create very unusual-looking shapes or marks. A genuine mint error has a specific manufacturing origin and should be evaluated based on its characteristics. This is especially important when you see unusual doubling or strange lettering. Not every apparent doubled feature is a valuable doubled die. Lighting, shadows, wear, machine doubling, scratches, and other factors can sometimes create misleading appearances. If your 1988 D quarter seems to have a major error, compare it carefully with a normal example and research the feature before making any assumptions. And most importantly, never scratch, polish, clean, or alter the coin in an attempt to make an unusual feature more visible. Cleaning is one of the biggest mistakes a collector can make with a potentially interesting coin. A coin may develop natural toning or retain original surfaces that collectors value. Scrubbing or polishing can leave scratches and change the coin's original appearance. Even if the result looks shinier, that does not mean the coin has become more valuable. If you believe you have a special 1988 D Washington quarter, the safest approach is to preserve it exactly as you found it. The 1988 issue is also an interesting part of Washington quarter history because it was produced before the major redesigns that would later transform the quarter series. At this time, Americans were still using the familiar Washington portrait and eagle reverse in everyday commerce. Millions of these coins passed through stores, banks, vending machines, and pockets. Most became circulated and worn, while a smaller number survived in much better condition. That difference is one of the reasons collectors continue examining older examples. If you are searching through an old coin collection, a good strategy is to organize your examination. Start with the date and mint mark. Then check the weight and measurements if you have appropriate equipment. Look at the obverse under good lighting. Examine the reverse. Inspect the rim and edge. Then compare the coin with another normal 1988 D quarter if you have one available. This side-by-side comparison can make unusual details much easier to recognize. Remember, the goal is not to assume that every 1988 D quarter is a fortune. The goal is to identify whether your particular coin has something that makes it different from the ordinary examples. It could be an unusually high grade, a significant mint error, an interesting variety, or simply an exceptionally well-preserved example. Each possibility needs to be evaluated separately, and extraordinary claims should always be verified with reliable evidence. And now we have reached the moment many viewers have been waiting for. The final price mentioned for this coin is $149,000. But there is a very important point you need to understand. $149,000 is not the normal value of every 1988 D Washington quarter. An ordinary circulated example should not automatically be considered worth anywhere near that amount. A price this high would require a very specific coin with exceptional characteristics, professional authentication, and reliable evidence supporting such a valuation. So if you have a 1988 D quarter, do not assume that the date and D mint mark alone make it a $149,000 coin. Always verify extraordinary price claims through trustworthy references, professional grading, and documented sales. This is what makes collecting Washington quarters so interesting. The coin may only say $quarter on the reverse, but its story can be much bigger than its face value. The date tells you when it was made. The D mint mark tells you where it was struck. The composition tells you what the coin is made from. The condition tells you how well it survived. And any genuine mint-made variety or error can add another layer to the story. So before you spend your 1988 D Washington quarter, give it one careful examination. Check the date. Look for the D mint mark near Washington's neck. Study the portrait. Examine the lettering. Turn it over and inspect the eagle. Check the rim and read its edge. Look for unusual characteristics, but remember that not every strange mark is a mint error. If something genuinely stands out, protect the coin and consider getting it professionally evaluated rather than cleaning or altering it. Now I want to hear from you. Do you have a 1988 Washington quarter with a D mint mark? What condition is your coin in? Is it heavily circulated, lightly circulated, or does it look almost untouched? Have you noticed any unusual feature on the front, reverse, or edge? Give me a reply in the comments and tell me about the coin you have. And if you have any coin that you would like me to show and discuss in a future video, tell me the year, mint mark, condition, and any interesting detail you have noticed. And if you enjoy Washington quarters, rare U.S. coins, valuable coin discoveries, mint errors, coin values, and American coin history, make sure you subscribe to U.S. Rare Coins News. Your support helps the channel continue bringing you more interesting coins and discoveries. So remember, before you spend an older quarter, stop and look twice. Check the date, check the mint mark, examine both sides, and pay attention to the smallest details. Sometimes the most interesting coin is the one that looked completely ordinary at first.